Whether you're a parent navigating myofunctional disorders or simply curious about optimizing your family's overall health, the MyoHacker Podcast is your guide. Hi, I'm Karindy Ong, a speech-language pathologist, myofunctional therapist, and a mom on a mission to bring holistic health to you and your family. Together, we'll explore whole-body connections and integrative solutions. Please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review to help other families discover this important information. Visit MyoHackerSLP.com for free resources and guides. Quick disclaimer. The content shared in this podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the podcast or its affiliates. This podcast does not provide medical, legal, or professional advice. Always consult a professional regarding your circumstances. By listening, you agree that the host and podcast are not responsible for any actions you may take based on the information provided. Now, let's dive into today's episode. All right, everyone, thank you for joining us for this episode of the MyoHacker Podcast. With us today is Apraxia aficionado Kim Garcia. Kim, tell us a little bit about yourself and your clinic.
Sure. I am located in the Oak Forest area of Houston, Texas, so just north of 610. And we specialize here, I have another therapist working with me. We specialize in apraxia of speech. And it's not the only thing we do. We do see most of the speech kiddos that come our way, with the exceptions of certain specialties where I think they need to be seen by someone with more knowledge. But for the apraxia kids, that is the bulk of my caseload.
Great. So tell us, what is childhood apraxia of speech?
Okay. Well, the first thing I would say is that childhood apraxia of speech it's a lifelong disorder. So it's not specifically in childhood, but that's when it's found. So childhood apraxia of speech is a neurological condition where there's a disconnect between the brain's motor planning system and the muscles and structures that we need to produce the motor plans for the sounds, the connected sounds in speech.
How is it typically diagnosed? What does that look like?
Oh, that's a good question. That's one of I love the diagnosis part. Usually over time, rarely just in one session. Our main goal is to see what the child is doing in speech. So we do a comprehensive assessment. So we want to look at all of the areas we can to see how much is going on, what's involved, and how we can include things or exclude things from the diagnosis. We'll do language testing. Well, of course, we'll do an oral MEC exam. We will do articulation testing. Sometimes we'll do traditional articulation testing where the child is just repeating the word and we're transcribing what the child does. But most of the time, or all of the time, the assessment needs to be dynamic. So in a dynamic assessment is if we have a list of words, which most articulation tests do, we want to have the child produce that word. We want to kind of analyze in line of what the child is doing, see what they're doing, and see how it changes once they have to repeat it, and see what they do once we give them support to get closer to their target, whether their target is a better approximation or the actual word. We want to see what types of supports they need. And within looking at those supports and those repeated trials, we're going to look for characteristics that we see in childhood apraxia of speech versus other speech disorders.
So what would be an example? Can you give us, let's say, the word bubble? What might be an example of how that looks in, let's say, like a speech disorder versus apraxia?
Sure. Okay, so bubble is good. So let's make this child 3 years old, because that's a good spot where parents are either concerned that their child doesn't have enough words because they're about to start preschool, or they have some words and they're very difficult to understand, difficult in and out of context. So my evaluation starts there, where we say, like, how much do you understand? If the parent's like, yeah, 10%, I already know that is a indication that this is more severe than another 3-year-old that has a speech sound delay. Because typically what I see is that parents will understand their kids 50 to 70%, mom and dad, and then grandparents a little less, new teachers, neighbors, the number goes down. But when a parent comes in and it's 10%, that's concerning. So looking at this word bubble, I'm thinking of these characteristics for apraxia, and some of those and I say characteristics of speech is what do I see and what do I hear when the child is speaking. So we have a list of just speech therapists in general. We know what we're looking for. Is the child leaving off consonants? Are they leaving off syllables? Are they leaving off initial sounds versus final sounds? Are some sounds sounding more like another sound, where we can get into that. But so for bubble, if the child is saying bubble, I want to see what they're doing when they're looking at, we can start just traditional and say bubble. And if the child says, Bubba, I'm like, you know what, that maybe that's concerning, but there's a place on another list for reduplication of syllables where the child is saying, Wawa for water, Bubba for bubble, Bubba for brother, Bubba for where we're making those repeated sounds. So I want to look a little bit more to see if I can weed it out. Now, if the child only says buh, then I'm like, okay, now there's a little bit more going on. And I'm just writing that stuff down. There's certain things where a lot of times, unfortunately, our kids with apraxia are coming in and their consonant inventory is so low that they may not have buh for bubble. Are there syllables?
So can you say
Sure.
real quick, what is a consonant inventory?
Okay, so our inventory is our bag of whatever's in there. So the consonants are the sounds that we need. So as speech therapists, we know those early sounds, and I'm going to use the letters for them, the M, P, B, and D. So mama, dada, papa, pop, pop. All of those, those come really early. With our kids with apraxia, a lot of times there's no rhyme or reason of what sounds the child has. I've had children that come in and they have the R sound, but there's no, the R sound is pretty clear, but there's nothing else around it, right? So we have row, but we can't figure out how to get bubba for bubble, or, so I'm looking at how difficult it is for the child to get these movements, to get the word right or close to right. And typically in that first evaluation session, I'm going to write down what I did and how much support they needed, right? So max support for me may look different than max support for another speech therapist, but I know for me, I'm giving all of the help that I can possibly get to give them, and then to see if we can back down from it, or see if that's what they need to stay there, and if they're able to repeat it once I take the supports away. And we just do that, and the words get longer and longer or more complex. And that's when we really see, like, okay, where are the breakdowns occurring? Because if we can say, bubble up, or we can say bubble, but when it's time to say bubble up, which up could be easy, and then it becomes then we're concerned. So it's just assessment like that, where we just keep making it more complex and keep giving support and taking it back and seeing what the child does with it.
So going back to that age 3, which I love, that was a perfect description and example to provide. How would, let's say a parent is listening and they're like, I think my child, he's a late talker. I think that's what it is. What might be a way for them to go, actually, let's take them in for an assessment with someone who specializes in apraxia?
Okay, good question. So typically, if a parent is aware of some of the more nuanced or some of the characteristics of apraxia, that's usually when it will come from the parent. They'll say something else is going on. And usually it's because they follow the child. Obviously, it's their child. So over time, so they may say, reduce babbling. Well, I'm not concerned. Reduced or absent babbling. And they may look it up. And usually, if I'm a parent too, so I would look it up. My child is not babbling, and they're, when they were 9 months old, they didn't babble, or, they're not talking now. And I see something pop up that says the child is not babbling, or there's reduced babbling. You're like, well, I'm not seeing signs of autism, and they don't have, they don't have this, they don't have that. So let me keep looking. So usually when I have parents come in and they're not being sent from another speech therapist, they already have that list of they'll tell me, Kim, there's something else. And usually they'll say like, oh, I've noticed he didn't. And I do ask these questions during intake. But when they're in front of me, I'll say, well, why me? I usually will say like, why me? Why did you come to me? And it's usually because they've noticed something that's a little bit off. And a lot of times it's the inconsistency of how the child says stuff. And while inconsistencies are not the end all be all of getting an apraxia diagnosis, that's usually what parents notice. So if the child is saying bubble and you're like, oh, they said bubble and mom has bubbles, grandma gives bubbles. And every time they hear, not every time, but throughout the day, bubble sounds like, uh-oh, and it's great. But then sometimes they may get the B, but then the parent will never hear it again. They'll get bubble and the parent will be like, well, he can say ball, but why can't he say bubble? Or he can say this, why can't he say that? That's usually the story that I get when parents are like, there's a concern, like he can say something very similar, but not this word that seems easier, or not this word that has the same sounds. So that's usually what parents will see first, where it's not just they're saying it in a cute way. Because the other delays end up being really cute, and the parents like, oh, we can keep it like that. And not that all of my kids are cute. All of them are cute.
Right.
But it's cute when it's typical because we can recognize it for other things. We're like, he's saying rabbit and he says wabbit. It's so adorable. And he said it like that since he was 2. And it usually sticks like that. But when it's wabbit and sometimes it's at it are just something not even close, but your child is saying rabbit because they're holding a rabbit or pointing to a rabbit, and then you turn to the next page and it's a rabbit and they say it differently, then the parent usually is, I'm concerned. And they sometimes can't pinpoint why they're concerned, but those are just notes for me.
So then what does therapy typically look like? Like, what would you say is an effective approach to apraxia therapy? Walk us through maybe a session that you can like pull from your head from yesterday. What might it look like?
Or all of my sessions today. Why not? So therapy actually looks a lot like my evaluations. So if you go back to listen to what am I doing in the evaluation? So we have bubble. And I say, how much support does this child need to get to their best production of bubble? And what is this child's best production of bubble? Or what is the production that I think this child can do based on what they have? So that's once I get my evaluation together, I know what sounds the child can produce. I know what syllable shapes. So syllable shapes are when we have no more a syllable, when we clap out the syllable. So we say bubble. But bubble each syllable has a vowel attached to it. So bu is a syllable and bull is a syllable. So I want to see what types of shapes they have and what they can do with their mouth when they're producing the sound. So once I know what they have, I can create a target list. So I can say, you know what? They came really close to having bubble because they said bu-oh. Let me see what else is around there. And I want to pick words that either are maybe not high frequency, but high importance for the child, and pick some words that obviously I can create sometimes with the sounds that they have. And then I will work on a small set. So instead of an evaluation, I'm presenting everything that I can, that the child is capable of doing up until short phrases. But in the evaluation, we're going to keep that target list short. So sometimes I'm working on 3 words during a whole session, sometimes 5. And we're working on those based on what I saw the child can do and how I think they can move and how much support they need. And like the evaluation, I'm going to start with the maximum of support that they need, back out of it, and then go back in and provide it as needed.
So tell us what that means when you say support. What are some activities, tools, things that you are referring to when you use the word support?
Support. Okay. So I'll give you an example, because you said, what would a session look like? So my 3-year-old, I'm looking around at the toys that I have. So right behind me is a crash pad. So if we do a lot of movement in therapy, and it's what the kids need. I don't have to tell you that. We do a lot of movement in therapy. So if we build a little staircase and we're going to jump. It's almost hard for me to talk to you without, I'm going to switch to how I would talk
Please
in
do.
a therapy
That's
session.
exactly what I want you to do. Please do that.
So if let's say we're working on, not bubble, we'll let the bubble pop, but we can work on up, right? So if we're working on getting up, if we're working on go, if we're working on not necessarily stop, sometimes I'll do wait before stop. And it really depends on what that particular child has.
Wait, you said you'll do wait before stop?
Before I work on stop.
So I'm thinking, are you putting on like wait, like a weighted vest?
No, wait, like wait,
like take time.
Wait, take a break.
Got it.
Wait. When you see that, when you hear more of the example. So if we're climbing up the stairs that we've made, we're going up. And I like to have the child tell me what to do, right? That our children, they hear us telling them what to do all the time.
They love being bossy pants.
All the time. So tell me what to do. You're going to tell Miss Kim, go up. Or we may just say go, right? We're saying go. And if the child needs help with just go, it depends. Usually, if I'm working on an activity and we're doing it in movement, usually I do it after the child has some control over it, where we can get good approximations, because we are making it less structured, right? Because it's more fill in the blank and spontaneous. But if it's not as spontaneous, we may work on go up, and we're just saying, oh, it's giving us a good time to practice go. So the max amount of cues I may give them, it depends on the child. Some children, it's so simple where it's look at what I'm doing and do what I do. Well, that would be lovely. But if they could do that, they would do that at home, right? Because that's what the parents have been practicing. Yep. Watch my mouth and do what I do. And if I need to give a physical cue, that may be just some tactile cues to the mouth to show where we start the sound for go. Or it could be, I don't have to touch them. It could be on me. I may say, oh, remember, we're going to go. And that's usually because the child has practiced that with me already. Like, we've already done our trials where we're either using specific prompts for I say prompts, so prompt therapy, our tactile cues to the face for go, but I'll usually have a hand cue by then, so they know what I'm talking about when I say go. And usually sometimes that is enough, and that's the maximum that they need. If they need more, we usually will back out, and maybe that's the wrong word to be using during play, but maybe usually not. But if they've got it, then I say, oh, that's right, I need to go. Or I would have them fill it in. That's when I can do ready, set, go, or ready, set, and let them say go, because that's spontaneous. So we'll work on go, or sometimes that's when wait. Because if they're telling me to go, sometimes I'll get up there and I'll get scared and I'm nervous and I'm like, wait, I need to wait. And then I'll ask them, should I wait? Sometimes they'll say yeah or okay. And a lot of times those are our target words too. They'll say yeah, and they'll say, oh yeah, wait. And then I will pause. That gives me an opportunity to pause. And then I'll ask them for help. Can you help me wait? And then I can get face to face with them and then really show them that cue again. So now I'm showing them a cue for wait if they didn't have it. But again, those are our targets. So they're practicing it at that time. So then we can get wait. And sometimes we need to wait a few times. So the one thing about apraxia therapy that you probably are going to ask me about it is the intensity of it. Yes. So one of the reasons why I'm only picking 4 or 5 targets per session is so we can get in maximum amount of time to practice. So if our sessions are 30 minutes, we're going to practice go, wait, up for 30 minutes. Those are our words for 30 minutes. And not that I'm not saying anything else. Miss Kim, I'm talking to myself in the wrong, but if I need to wait, I'm going to wait, and I may need help waiting. Help me wait. I need to wait slow. So I may calm down, slow my voice down and say it in different ways, the ways that they've practiced it before. Let's say it in a whisper. Let's wait. Oh, wait, you know what? I'm not ready to say wait yet. Can you tell me when to say wait? And I'll have them point to me. So there's a lot of things that we've practiced before we can move into that really fast dance that we have during speech therapy, where we can practice multiple things. But I will try to practice a sound a certain amount of times before we move on to the next. I say sound, the movement, before we move on to the next movement.
And speech is so fast.
It
We
is.
just take it for granted how quickly we are moving articulators. We're moving the tongue, we're moving the jaw, we're moving all of these structures, and it is so fast. So taking that time, giving that breakdown, what are maybe some elements so that was obviously play. Are you using kinesio tape? Are you using vibration? Anything like that? Any tools specific?
No tools.
Yeah.
Not unless the child has something else. I mean, I don't even use flashcards in therapy. I don't use anything, and I can't say I don't use flashcards and I'm looking at my desk and there's a set of flashcards. There's a time and a place.
For sure.
I try not to use things in between my model and the child's production. Right? Because it's the muscle movement. So if we're working on weakness or having to bring awareness to a certain area, that's kind of like pre-therapy, right? Kind of how we have like pre-feeding therapy.
Yeah.
Like that's, if we have something to work on before or alongside, then we do that. But for apraxia therapy or for motor speech therapy, I want the muscles moving in the way they need to move to get the word out. And we need to do it over and over and over again until it becomes kind of ingrained, or we're creating a new motor pathway for that word. So I don't like anything getting in between that. So even a flashcard to me takes the attention away from my face. Or takes the attention away. The child's, there's so much going on cognitively for them to just have to get the words out correct. So I find that a lot of times just holding up unless it's somewhere near my face, I hold a lot of tools on my face, visors, the shields, something. So like stickers are near my face, anything near my face to keep that attention near my face. So I very often use puppets, because some children are not like staring at someone's face or in their eyes is difficult. So we'll use puppets, but typically I'll try not to put anything other than that target word or production or movement between me and the child.
That's so good. So what are things that you have this very specific framework that you're using? How do you then educate parents on what they can do? Like, what are some things they can do following your session at home?
That's a good question. So I was going to say I don't give homework, but it takes a while before I give homework. And typically, and not that it's something to get used to, I tell families
Okay, wait, I want you to say why it takes a while. Like, share that. It's not like you're holding your cards close to your chest or something. There's an intention and a reason.
There's an intention. Yeah. Yes, there's an intention with everything that happens, everything I say, every toy I take out, every decision I make. The reason behind not giving practice work to go home right away is because I want to make sure that there's not going to be bad practice happening at home. And I explained this during the evaluation, because sometimes, especially if the child is coming for articulation or for apraxia and for language and for just overall help, I have it on the ready. Here's a flyer or a handout I have for easing transitions. Here's a flyer I have for supporting your child in preschool. But when it comes to motor speech practice, or even, I know we're talking about motor speech, but for articulation, for a child coming in and they're just working on the R, and until the parent has sat with me, practiced with me, and they know that target, that's when we can go home. So oftentimes at the end of our session, I will tell a parent, like almost sometimes as we're walking out, I will tell a parent, okay, yes, our target is weight. And the parent will ask me, they know, so we can work on weights at home? Yes, you can work on weights at home, and look for, and they know, look for the child to do X, Y, Z. If they start doing A, B, C, back off and stop. And typically because the parents know that we're working on movement, they will know that, we're not just working on weight, we're working on my child engaging this part when they say, because without it, weight sounds like 8. Right? So they know, like, okay, we're working on this. And I will tell them in therapy, 90% of my sessions, the parent is in the session so they can hear and see. But usually it's that last 5 minutes where I say, you know what? Yes, we can work on work on this at home. And oftentimes if the child has it and they understand that they got it, they will practice it on their own. So then we just have to work on, okay, what do we do at home when the child gets it incorrect? Do we correct them? Do we practice with them? If the parent knows that hierarchy of like the supports the child needs, then they are more than welcome to practice it at home. And I've had many parents successful with that. And they need to be because, well, I know one of the next questions might be that what therapy looks like. Therapy is frequent. And I rarely make a recommendation to start less than 3 times a week, but that's not easy. It's not easy at all. I don't think I have a parent right now that drives less than 45 minutes to see me.
Wow.
Currently, I don't have a parent that drives less than 45 minutes. So with that said, for my parents that may be driving over an hour and a half to see me, as a team, we don't recommend that 3 times a week, because how can it be done taking out 4 hours of your day or more to do a speech therapy session? So we're flexible. So we say, you know what, you are coming to speech therapy so I can give you everything out of my head, so you can see how we can make progress, and you can then take homework, right? Or you can then say, you know what, Kim, I'm noticing this. And usually those parents are the parents that come in and say, Kim, we're noticing our child doing this when they say this. What can we do? We're noticing our child saying this when they say this. And we'll work through that during our session. And typically those sessions are longer, right? Because if you're driving an hour and a half to get to me,
yeah. Wow.
I'm not going to turn you away at 30 minutes and say, okay, see you next week. So our sessions are flexible in time.
And that just speaks to the specialty that you have, that people realize to get a motor speech treated specifically using the hierarchy you mentioned.
Yeah.
That you do have to travel quite a distance often. So can you actually walk us through that hierarchy that you mentioned?
Sure. So the hierarchy is based on DTTC, where it's a hierarchy. It's evidence-based. It's been studied. Out of all of the programs, that one has been studied and that one has the most evidence. So there is a hierarchy where we are kind of, I call it a dance, where we're doing a dance of support with the child. And we want to start with the child. One, we really are starting with imitation to see what the child is doing in just direct imitation. So say bubble, and we see what the child does. Then we want the child to, what I do is give the max support. So the max support may be like, let's do it together. So we're saying it at the same time. And a lot of times that pre-therapy part that I kind of talked about before, some of my 3-year-olds may not know what at the same time means. So we may have a session, a session where a session or 2 or 3 where we're working on doing things at the same time. So we understand what the therapist means when she says, let's do it at the same time. So sometimes I'll hold their hands. I was like, okay, me and you, and I'll give them a little squeeze. We're saying, we're going to say mama. So we'll do it at the same time and see what the child does. If the child has breakdowns there, that's when I'm going to give more support, right? So how can we give more support? Just, like the hierarchy is almost like a test. I'm testing you. How can we do it? How are you doing it at the same time? How are you doing it immediately after me?
Yeah. With
the delay, and then spontaneous. That's the hierarchy. Yeah. And then, so at that same time, okay, let's say it at the same time and watch me. I may give like a hand signal, and they change. They may change from kid to kid, but they don't change within that kid. So if that day I decide like, oh, this works, then it works for them. Sometimes I may give a cue like on their lips for what they need, and we're doing it at the same time. A lot of times they get it. And then I can, I'm picking like, that's their target. The target is mama. So we're getting mama at the same time. That may take the whole session, right? Where I'm just like, but imagine that session. Yeah. Imagine that session. The parent is the child comes in, we're working on mama, and we got it at the same time. right? So then that becomes the parent's homework.
Yep.
Right? Because we were successful with it, saying it at the same time, because then we can get dad and little sons, let's call mama. Let's do it at the same time. Ready? And we're going to model what we did with Miss Kim. Mama. And we did it at the same time. When? So big, because mom comes out and she's, of course, overjoyed, but it's practice. We're getting that practice in, and we can practice with that until we get into therapy again. Or sometimes families will call me or send me a video and they'll say, look, we got it. And I was like, you know what? Just for fun, try moo. Let's just see what happens. Let's see what happens. And if it doesn't happen, that's fine. Yeah. And if it does happen, that's great. But I'll say try it and do moo together. Get the cows and everyone do moo at the same time, because then we know, okay, he understands, or he or she understands that simultaneous production, and we know it helps, right? We know that's the level that helps them get the motor movement, and that's why they're here. And then we can say, you know what? Let's take turns. Mama, 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 or moo, moo. All the cows are saying moo. And that's when we really can rack up. Like, I know I have a couple of Instagram videos that shows like all the amount of little toys I have, because maybe now we come in and there's a train of cows and they all have to say moo. You know, they all have to say moo before they jump over the fence, or they all have to call for their mama, you know, before they go into the barn. And that's how we're getting a lot of those trials in and moving on to the next level of, okay, now we're taking turns saying it. Usually when the child gets to the point of, I mean, it's spontaneous if the child is taking a cow and saying moo, mama, then we know we can move on to the next word that may be a little bit more complex.
But how huge to have that motor pathway nice and streamlined. Like suddenly they're not getting that friction or resistance trying to get to that word, and they have access to it. So then those pathways, once we have it developed there for moo or for mama, then we can make it's easier to get a branch off toward another sound or another syllable that's going to be similar, or combination of syllables. And neuroplasticity is a beautiful thing. I'd love for you to share if someone's listening and they're like, wait, why would it be better to, like, why is it easier as far as a hierarchy standpoint to say something with someone?
So I'm from the Northeast. So I usually give the snow. I mean, there's a couple of them, but my favorite is the snow. So I tell the parent, so imagine if the parent is from the Northeast or from an area where there's snow, they get it 100%. So, you know, you wake up one morning and you realize that you've got 14 inches of snow and you did not set up the shovel on the porch, which, you know, it's a story because it's real life. It happens. So you have to walk to the garage to get your shovel. You put on your boots.
As you tell this story, this is another reason I'm like, I'll never live in the Northeast. I'm just saying.
It's the reason we're not moving back. It's the reason we're not moving back. So you get your boots on and you, of course, struggle to get to the garage because you have to lift up your feet. Every time you step up, you have to pick it up 14 inches, which is way above what a normal step or march or climbing would do. And you have to do that for each step. That is what apraxia is like, because the motor plan for that movement, it's not there. It's brand new. It hasn't been created yet. So you walk and you get to the garage and you're like, I got there. And then you realize you forgot your garage opener, whether it's a key or a fob, and you have to go back. When you go back, you're going to take those same steps that you've already created and step back. But it's still going to be a little bit difficult because the boots are not the right direction and your left-right movement may be a little bit off, but it is a little bit easier because that path is starting to get there. Things are starting to connect. You have your key and you're going to go back a third time. So what your footprints have done, it's support. But imagine if you go back and your husband is like, you know what? I'm going to help you. So he holds your hand while you're walking out. Or your child comes out and they're like, Mama, can I come too? Oh, my. So now you're helping him. But for each of you, it's a little bit easier because that path has already been created. So When we talk about building the pathway, that's one, because we needed that support to build the pathway to begin with, but we've already started to crush down the snow, right? We're crushing it, we're moving it out of the way. By the third or fourth time, it's there, and you may not even need a shovel at that point if you're only getting to the garage. But if you're only getting to the garage, then that's one motor movement. Now we need to get to the car. And now we need to get to the backyard because we have to pull the trash out. So all of these are new motor movements that we do need support. Our kids with apraxia need support. So we're the ones holding their hands and saying, you know what? Let's do, what's the game where you, like the three-legged walk, where if two of our feet are together walking, right? Like if we have our right foot and left foot and we're walking, boom, boom, that middle pathway is going to be so much easier for when that child comes back on their own. They can, it's going to be easier. So we need less support. So each time we produce that word or that motor movement, it's easier.
Okay. So what would you say is the biggest emotional challenge for parents of kids with apraxia, and how do you support them?
Okay. That's hard. It's hard to see your child struggle, right? And in general, it's hard to see your child struggle. I remember my child learning to put on his shoes. Such an easy task. Right. But also it's something that it takes a long time.
Shoes. My goodness.
Right. It takes a long time at first, and it's hard not to jump in and help them. But for shoes, we can jump in and help them. We can just say, oh, you know what, this one, because we're in a rush this one time, let me just do it. And we'll just go out the door and we're done. But for speech, we can't get in our child's head and get in their mouth and replace it. We can't do that for them. And there's a constant reminder of kids doing it with ease. And that's the story I get so often, and not just apraxia, just speech delays, where they'll say like, oh, we took them to pre-K. We thought pre-K, they'll help them get more words. Not all the time. And they'll say, this 3-year-old walked up to me and said 2 sentences. They said they went to the rodeo yesterday. Did I go? It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. So what I tell families, again, it's during that, our evaluation sessions are long, right? And a lot of it is counseling. But what I do say is that, like, I'm so happy to be part of your child's team. Let's look at what we're going to be celebrating, right? And this is one thing that, I feel comfortable enough saying that all speech therapists should be doing, because it's something, let's look at what we should be celebrating. So what are the child's goals? So when we talk about bubble and we have the child saying, uh-oh, if my parents know that we're working on motor movement and we're not just working on getting the B sound, I will say, you know what? I'm going to be so happy and I'm going to celebrate when we do get mouth closure at the front of the word, right? Because that motor movement is something that's building the foundation for, and like you said, like, is building the foundation for mama, is building the foundation for all of these sounds that are going to start with our mouth closed. So we're going to celebrate that. So when we know what the child's goal is in therapy, we can celebrate more often. We can celebrate with our child. We can see and we can appreciate what the child is doing and what we're all doing as a team. So while we know, like, it's really hard to see our child struggling, if we look at, oh, we want to compare our child to the 3-year-old that can talk all about going to the rodeo, then we're going to miss all of the work our child is doing, right? We're going to miss it.
And it's such a moment where we can actually take a beat from culture. Just especially, we have Instagram and who knows, social media, all these things where you can just have a comparison all day long, all the time. And I think even more than in, previous generations, we have this all the time, that you have the opportunity to compare yourself as a parent and your child to other children, which that is not what we want. That's not what we want. We want them to be these individual, special human beings that they are, and seen for the progress that they make. And it takes understanding where they're starting from to be able to really celebrate those milestones that they accomplish.
Exactly.
Sorry, I went on a soapbox there. I wasn't planning. But
okay.
So that answers my next question. I was going to say, so what encouragement do you give families? And I think that's it. what you
Yeah,
just
that's
said. Yeah, is like, look where they started from. Look at these movements they're making.
it.
And especially when we have, let's say, neurologically complex cases. Not every case of apraxia is one that has, something else going on, but
Most of them are.
sometimes they do. Well, yeah.
Most of them
But
something
don't
else
be
is going on.
scared.
Yeah.
Don't be scared if
Yeah.
you're listening and you're like, we just want to say we're here to support whatever is going on. And, it can be huge to make that progress. And sometimes we'll see things like stress, even growth spurts. All of a sudden, they're in this time of neurological pruning. There's more going on. You might be like, hey, and just giving space and taking off pressure.
Yeah.
So important. And for all kids, but especially when it comes to apraxia of speech, I think it's so important.
Yeah.
So what is right now? There's someone listening and they're like, how do I find this Kim? How do I get to her? What can I do? What do they do?
To get to me. So I am on most social media platforms, not TikTok yet, at North Star Pediatric Speech Therapy. Usually if you just search my name, Kim Garcia, and speech, hopefully I'll pop up. My Instagram page, my Facebook page, and my website are all the same, North Star Pediatric Speech Therapy. And my phone still rings directly in my pocket. I offer free consultations, and I love talking to families. And even if they're not sure of where to go or where to start, that's what the consultation is for. So I can either point you in the right direction, or I could say, you know what, come in person, bring your child, and let's start there. Let's talk in person so we can really kind of figure this out. Yeah.
Your heart is so good. So big, so good. All right, guys, you heard it. So reach out to Kim. And I will have in the show notes all of the ways that you can get in contact with her. If you're like, I can just message me and I'll get you in touch with Kim. Okay. I want you to have her as a resource. So if you're listening on an iPhone or anything, you can just scroll down and you'll see her contact information right there. So you all know the drill. Please like, save, share this information. There are so many families that need to know how to support little ones with motor speech disorders, with all kinds of issues. Please share this episode with them and let them know there's hope, there's support, and we want to be there to help them and their child really succeed in all of these ways. And without it being this pressure just for parents that you got to figure it out. No, get a team. Get a team. Like Kim, let us help you guys, okay? We want you to have that support because it really means so much. So thank you, everyone. As you know, please rate and review the podcast. Again, it helps get this information out to other families. It means the world to me that you would share your time and your interest. Thank you so much. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of the MyoHacker Podcast. Remember, small changes can make big impacts on our overall health and well-being. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. This way, more families will learn about this important information and we can make a bigger impact. Head on over to MyoHackerSLP.com for in-depth resources and guides. You can also join me on Instagram at MyoHackerSLP for bonus content and demos. And if you have questions or topic suggestions for future episodes, send me a message. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, let's biohack myofunctional health as MyoHackers who change the world through intentional action and connection and breathing. Quick disclaimer reminder, the content shared in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only.